Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Big D's and Liam's Custom Garage. I'm Big D.
And I'm Liam.
On today's episode, we will be putting in the pistons and the rods into the 350 motor for dark matter. I do have a quick correction from last week. We told you guys to torque your main cap bolts at 40 foot-pounds. I don't know where that came from, don't know where it came from in my head, because that is not accurate at all. Ignore that number. Go back, before you start installing your pistons and rods, go back and re-torque them. Your center bolts on a 4-bolt main need to be torqued at 65 foot-pounds, and your outer bolts on a 4-bolt main need to be torqued at 70 foot-pounds. Okay? So make sure you go back and fix that before going on to the next step, which we are going to go to now. So enjoy this next part of today's video, and we will see you back here at the end. Hey everybody, welcome back. So what we've got to do first in today's episode is install all of our piston rings and then properly clock them. Okay? What I mean by clocking is, you see these gaps here, the piston gap, ring gap, okay? Those cannot be lined up with each other. That's what I mean by clocking. And I will show you that as we get them put on. I'm only going to demonstrate on the one piston, okay? So, first things first. We have to put on our waffle ring. It's part of the oil ring, which is the bottom ring. Okay, I'm gonna use my dental pick as a pointer. So you have 3 grooves. Your bottom groove, which is where your waffle ring and your oil rings go. Then you got a second groove for your secondary ring. And then you got a top groove for your top ring, okay? Sometimes your rings will be beveled. Sometimes they will have a dot. When you go to install your piston rings, always look for a bevel and or a dot stamped in the top of the ring. That shows you what side up it needs to be. However, if you have a piston ring that has no dots on either side and no bevel on either side, that means that ring could be installed either side up. Okay, but that's only with rings like that are not marked or beveled. Okay, so first we got to install the waffle ring. It goes in our bottom groove. Now, when installing your piston rings, you're going to want to take your bottom corner edge, start it in the channel, and then just use your fingers and just gradually, very slowly, walk your way around the piston, dropping your ring down into its proper groove. Always make sure your edges, as you're coming around, hold them out away from your piston, because they are sharp and you can scratch the side of your piston, and you do not want to do that. Okay, so now that the waffle ring is in, we are going to take our oil rings. You have 2 of them per piston. One goes under your waffle ring, and the other one goes above the waffle ring in the same groove, okay? So, you're going to take your oil ring, stick it under your waffle ring, and just like before, you're just gonna walk it around very carefully and get it down underneath that waffle ring, holding the edge of the ring out away from the piston so you do not scar it or gall it. and just keep working it around until it is in. And then you repeat that process with your top ring that goes above your waffle. Slowly work it around. Okay, same thing. Just very carefully work it around, holding the end of the ring out away from the side of the piston, and then boom. That is your oil ring installed on your piston. Now, as you guys can see, I have it sitting in the vise. I have it wrapped in a towel. You do not need to He-Man these down in your vise. So all you're doing is just using them as a stabilization so you can install your rings, okay? So we have the oil ring. Now, we have our secondary ring, which goes in this middle channel right here. This one is beveled. It is beveled on the inside, not on the out. It's beveled on the inside, okay? That means that bevel goes facing up, okay? So we're going to now do the same thing as before. These are a thicker ring, so you're gonna have to, use a little bit more finger strength, okay? So again, just like before, you're going to start it in its groove. You're going to very slowly walk it around and get it back in, get it into its channel, like so. Okay, and get it in there. Come on, get in there. There she goes. Okay, so we'll just keep walking that around like so, getting her in there. Okay. Holding out away from the edge, bevel up, like we said before. We do not want to go or scratch the sides of our pistons. Okay. Make sure we are in our groove. There we go. We are down in our groove now. Okay. That is our secondary ring. And as you guys know, in a previous episode, we have already gapped these rings, so we're good there, all right? So that's our secondary ring. And then our final ring, our top groove ring. Again, this one is not marked or beveled, so it can go on either direction, okay? Again, take your ring like so, bend it like so, so slightly. You don't want to distort it or crack it, but you just want to slightly bend it like that. Put it in your groove. Make sure it goes in the groove so it does not pop back out. I have had that happen to me before. You gotta find your spot and get it in there. Okay, then just work it around like so, like we've done on all the others, and boom, there it is. Okay, now clocking. Now that our rings are installed properly, we have our wrist pin, okay, that travels this way, okay, like so, through our piston. You want to use your wrist pin as a center line, okay? So, what we want to do is find the split or groove in your oil ring first, or your waffle ring, I should say, all right? Which they all are right here, okay? You're going to rotate that groove around, okay? You're going to find that groove. Okay, there is our center point right there, Okay, so that goes that way. Now, your oil rings, the ones that are on top of your waffle ring, you want to go with that. Hold your other ring in place because it will try to move on you. Take your bottom oil ring and you're going to just turn that using your dental pick very slightly. You're going to put that at 10 degrees of one side of that groove or of your wrist pin. Okay, so you want to go 10 degrees off center with your bottom oil ring. Now your top oil ring, you want to go 10 degrees off center in the opposite direction, okay? So one is counterclockwise and the other one is 10 degrees clockwise. So your waffle ring is your center point groove. Your bottom ring will be 10 degrees one way off of center, and your top ring groove will be 10 degrees off center the other direction. Now, those are all on one side, okay? Your other rings, however, will go to the other side of your piston facing this way. Okay, your grooves are now on this side for your middle and your top ring. What you do with those is your middle ring will go 10 degrees of off center one direction of the wrist pin, okay? Like so. And then your top ring will go 10 degrees the opposite direction of your wrist pin slash center point. And that is how you properly install in gap, or excuse me, that is now the proper way you install and clock your piston rings onto your pistons. Okay, let's move on to the next step, which is putting these assemblies into the block. So here we go. Okay guys, so here is our new ring compressor. It's not the most expensive in the world. It will get the job done. Just if you guys use this style, make sure you are very, very careful. The edges are extremely sharp, so wear gloves, or at the very least use a shop towel when you're trying to adjust these so you don't cut up your hands, okay? Now, we have the pistons ready to go in. As you guys can see, we do not have the caps on. Now, I'm going to show you right here, okay? This side kind of sticks out a little more than the other, okay? Let me see if you guys can see that or not. Right there. Okay, so this side of your rod protrudes out more than this side, okay? This side is also smoother and flatter than this side. Reason being for that, when you put them in, okay, each journal on your crank shares a rod or two rods, okay? So you have to have your smoother sides facing each other, which you guys will see very shortly, okay? So again, we want to double check your clocking of your piston rings before dropping them in. Make sure that they are still where you need them to be. Your oil rings will stay put pretty much It's your secondary and your top ring that really like to move around because they're looser on the piston. Okay, got ours positioned where they need to be. Need to be very careful sliding these down in. You do not want to scratch your cylinder walls or gall your crank. So what I like to do is I'll reach in from the bottom, stabilize my rod, okay, and then drop it down in like so. So we're not scratching the cylinder, okay, and we got to get it in its hole, okay. Now we are in, or I should say we are started. Again, one final check. Make sure first you're square in your bore, okay. Then we want to do one final check of the rings and make sure, again, they're clocked right. This is very, very important step, guys, making sure your rings are clocked right. Because if you don't, you can end up with oil blow-by, lack of compression, it goes on. So you want to make sure that you are clocked properly. Now, I'm going to take the ring compressor, make sure it is open far enough first, okay. Okay. Again, I'm not a real huge fan of these styles of ring compressors, but when you're working on a budget, guys, you got to go with what you got. Okay, now we're going to want to push this up just a hair so we can get that bottom oil ring compressed, okay? Now, this tool comes with this Allen kind of wrench. You're going to take it, you're going to tighten down onto or around your piston, I should say. That is going to compress your rings. Okay guys, so we got this tightened down. We are now going to drive it down into the motor very slowly. Okay. Now, we do not want this all the way in yet, and I'm going to show you why. I'm going to just tap it slightly down into the cylinder here. Okay. And the reason being is we now have to flip it back upside down so we can put it back on the crank and get it lined up. Okay guys, so as you can see now, we got this ready to go. So what we got to do now is we have to install our bearing. That's why we couldn't drive it all the way up into the bore all the way yet. So yeah, we're a little cockeyed, but not bad. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we're going to take the, you guys aren't really going to be able to see this all that well, I don't think. I'm going to try as best as I can for you. Anyway, we got to put the bearing on the top side of the rod before pushing it all the way up onto the rod journal on the crank. Again, like our other bearings, this one also has grooves. So we're going to put this down in just like the mains that we did last week. You just slide them down into your rod. This is easier to do with them outside. I just forgot that step. I got in a hurry. I apologize. The rest of them I'm going to do before putting them into the block like I did this one. So, okay. Bearing is on. Again, got to use your assembly loop. Put it on your bearing, like so. Make sure you move it around with your finger. Lube that bearing up good. Okay. Because again, you don't know how long your project's going to be sitting. You could be putting it together and it going right in, or you could be putting it together and it could end up sitting for a couple months. And the assembly lube helps out a lot with that. Because of it being sticky, it's not going to run off the parts like motor oil would. So don't be too shy with your assembly lube, but again, don't get crazy with it either. Okay, now that we've done that, we can go ahead, use our hand, and just tap our piston up where it needs to be. Or you can use the butt of your hammer and then just kind of guide it up, okay, up to where it needs to be. Just tap it, tap it, tap it, tap it, making sure it goes on the rod journal square and not to gull it or scratch it. Okay, and there we are. That one is seated. Now, the next step, we take our rod cap, which is right here. Okay. Now these are aftermarket, guys. Remember that. Your factory ones will look different than this. They'll even have different torque specs. Okay, here's our bearing for that. Again, they are Clevites. And our rings were Molly rings. Okay, see, these go on a little easier than your mains. Your rod bearings tend to just kind of slide down right into their thing. Again, they have a little groove channel that they seat into. It keeps them from rotating on each other and also helps line them up. Okay, a little bit assembly lube again, guys. Rub it around with your finger. Okay, like so. All right, then again, make sure smooth side in, more flared side toward the outside of your journal. Okay, line it up. Take a rubber mallet and very gently tap it on, making sure it seats well. They're not going to perfectly seat because these styles have a collar on them. So they are a little bit more stubborn going together than your factory ones would be. Your factory ones don't have a collar, and they are actually a stud and nut type setup, where your ARPs are literally a bolt. Now, ARP bolts, guys, these are stronger than your stocks, of course, and they have a different process than your stocks. Okay, so you got to take this stuff, it's ARP assembly loop. You got to brush it on the threads a little bit. Okay, you got to brush it on the bolt collar and the bottom side of the bolt's head. Okay, now don't get crazy with it. You don't have to be all thick and stupid with it. It just, you need to put a decent coat on there. Okay, scrape a little bit off because that is a little too much. Okay, now you got to put this down in here like you would, and then get it started. Now these are a 11 millimeter 12 point. Okay, just so you know. Again, take your bolt. Now this one, guys, is the only one I'm going to do in normal speed. The rest of them I will show you guys how to do in hyperlapse, because this is a long process. Okay, and I don't want to bore you guys with a bunch of unnecessary stuff. Okay, so we got our assembly ARP assembly loop on our ARP bolts. Okay, you're going to run these down, and you're going to go back and forth as you're running them down. Don't run one down and then the other one down, and you don't want to do that, because it can cause your bearings to not seat right. Okay, so you want to run them down with a regular socket wrench at first. Okay, going side by side or side to side. Okay, well, once they start snugging up, that is. When you're running them in, that don't matter. But once they start applying pressure, that's when you want to start going side to side with them. Okay, so a little there, and just keep doing that. I like to do 1, 2, then go back up and go 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1, 2. Okay, that one is on. All right, now this is where things really get different. All right, okay guys, so on these, they're different than stock. Okay, on stocks you torque them down one time, you're done. Okay, and you don't have assembly loop. ARPs, however, you have to torque them down. Hey everybody, we lost a little bit of footage right here. Your rod cap bolts need to be torqued down to 65 foot-pounds. You need to repeat this process 5 times on each bolt. You need to torque it to 65 foot-pounds, back them off, and then re-torque them again. Again, you got to do that 5 times. We are now going to jump to time lapse, so enjoy this next part of the video, and we'll see you here at the end. Okay guys, well, as you can see, we've got all of our pistons and rods now installed. So we got our flat top standard bore Keith Black pistons and our new H-beam Eagle rods have also been installed. There we go. We'll get another quick peek from underneath here. There you go. Hopefully you guys can see that. But that is it. The bottom end is fully assembled now. Hey everybody. Well, welcome back. Well, the motor came out good. I'm very happy with the Keith Black pistons. I'm loving the Eagle H-beam rods. This motor is going to be stout.
It's going to be solid. Yeah.
Yes, I cannot wait to hear this thing run and get to drive it. It's going to be awesome. But we're going to be taking a couple week break from the 350. We've got stuff that really needs to get done like now on the 4Runner Project Apocalypse. So anyway, let Liam tell you what we got going on over there.
We're getting some new front lights, LED lights for the front. They're coming in. We have still have to install the antenna on the back temporarily. We still have to do some wiring for more of the lights that are going to go on the top rack. And we have to remove some parts that are going to get in the way of the new bumpers and stuff like that too, that we're going to have to get rid of. And we might actually get to tagging up some things for the front bumpers.
Yeah, that's going to be the biggest thing, is getting started on the actual bumpers. That's
we have to make our own brackets for bolt up, because I want it removable. So we're going to get the brackets started and get those at least tacked up to where we can go to a neighbor and have them welded completely up.
Yeah, I would say 2-3 weeks, possibly 4, maybe more. We will be strictly on Project Apocalypse. Like I said, we got some stuff that really needs to get done like now, and then we'll get back on the 350. But yeah,
get that 350 in the Blazer and see how well it screams.
Yeah. And when we get back on the 350, we'll step up our pace a little bit with it, because we do have everything. I could slap it together right now. I have everything except for the heads. Only reason why we're not doing that is because I want to teach you guys how to put it together and how to build your first motor, so I'm doing it step by step. But when we come back to working on the 350, we're going to step up the pace a little bit and try to get it like done, because our off-roading season is fast approaching, and I want that motor in that Blazer so we can enjoy the off-roading season. But with that being said, that's going to do it for this week's episode. Make sure to like this video and hit that subscribe button down in your left hand corner. If you like the channel or like these videos, please hit the subscribe. We greatly appreciate it. And also hit the bell icon up in your right corner so you get first alerts to your mobile devices every time we go live or upload a new video. We will see you guys right here next week. I'm Big D.
And I'm Liam.
And we're out.